Which of his challenges did Barney fail? What's the funniest type of high five the characters did on the show? And what's the best rule Ted ever gave us? Hi, I'm Joe. Let's start. Challenge accepted. We frequently heard this phrase from Barney whether anyone challenged him or not, and more often than not, no one really cared whether he succeeded. But even this didn't deter Stinson. He always did his best to complete all his challenges.
If you did everything on that list, you would die. That wasn't
challenge accepted.
And here's something you've never noticed. There were only 2 challenges Barney didn't complete. He couldn't hook up with a girl wearing Ted's red cowboy boots, and he also never picked up a girl with diapers and samosas because, in the process of completing this challenge, he met Tracy, aka the mother, and it changed his life. Now tell us honestly, how often do you accept challenges coming your way, and can you beat Barney's success rate? The Olive Theory. We learned about this in the pilot episode. Essentially, the theory states that if you want to be a perfect couple with someone, one of you has to love olives and the other one has to hate them. According to Ted, it worked for Lily and Marshall because it created the perfect balance in their relationship. And that's also why he was so excited about Robin on their first date.
Do you want these? I hate olives.
But then it turned out that both Lily and Marshall loved olives, and Robin also became fond of them by the end of the show. So it's unclear whether the olive theory works, but we still tend to use it to describe a perfectly balanced relationship. Have you met Ted? Barney invented the perfect way to introduce his friend to a beautiful woman, didn't he? He'd just say, "Have you met Ted?" and then leave immediately, forcing Ted to talk to her. Even in real life, this trick must have a high success rate because it's so neat and tasteful. And that's actually how Ted met Robin.
Jukebox.
Hi, have you met Ted?
Hi.
Let me guess. Ted.
Sure, this catchphrase doesn't only work for the Teds in this world. Just use whatever name and help your wingman hook you up with a pretty girl in a bar or anywhere else. Tell us in the comments if you've ever used this phrase and share your success stories. Eating a sandwich. Isn't it funny how Ted would tell his kids all about his girlfriends and sexual relationships, but would never state directly that he smoked weed? Instead, he'd always say that he was eating a sandwich.
Chew, 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 swallow.
It was one of the best running gags in the show. And ever since, it's become a code word for How I Met Your Mother fans. Want to smoke some but don't have your parents or anyone else around to know what kind of craving you're having? Just say that you'd like to eat a sandwich. But beware of other How I Met Your Mother fans because they'll know what you really mean. Legend, wait for it, dairy. I don't think I'm wrong when I say that this is the most popular one of all of Barney's catchphrases. He said it dozens of times throughout the series.
Gonna be legendary. It's gonna be wait for it. And I hope you're not lactose intolerant because the second half of that word is dairy. No. Legendary. Legendary. Ted Legendary.
In fact, it's a compilation of 2 different catchphrases because Barney used legendary and wait for it separately too. He loved both so much that he even convinced Marshall and Lily to give the middle name Wait For It to their firstborn son.
Marvin, wait for it, Eriksen.
That is the coolest middle name of all time.
Do you agree that it is the coolest middle name ever? I'm sure that a lot of fans were thinking about giving it to their kids, or maybe some even changed their own middle name to Wait For It. Have you thought about it? The front porch test. Lily often liked to teach others how to live. She'd even meddle in Ted's relationships if she decided that his girlfriend wasn't a good fit for him. She even broke him and Robin up. But of course, she did it with the best of intentions, wanting them all to spend their golden years playing bridge on the front porch.
Bridges are wild. 4 of a bridge beats a royal bridge.
You see a bridge? They raise you 3 bridges.
Bridge! I win!
And many of Ted's girlfriends just didn't pass her front porch test. I bet that you've used the same technique to assess your friend's partner at least once. I just hope that you didn't have to resort to extreme measures and break them up. After all, Lily is the only person who can do it right. Suit up! It was one of the first things we heard from Barney in the pilot episode. And although Ted wouldn't suit up every time he asked him to, Barney was still the one to teach him how to wear a suit in style.
Lose the goatee. It doesn't go with your suit.
I'm not wearing a suit.
Lesson 2, get a suit. Suits are cool. Exhibit A.
With time, this phrase acquired many additional meanings and subphrases, like birthday suit up, for example, or flight suit up, snow suit up, and even penguin suit up for one Halloween. So you see, there are multiple ways to suit up in real life, and you can use any one of them. Which one do you prefer? Lawyered. This term, coined by lawyer Marshall Eriksen, aka the Big Fudge, is a perfect way to end an argument you've just won. He used it every time he disproved someone else's, most often Barney's, statement, and it always sounded awesome.
I win. Lawyered.
In fact, this word became so popular after How I Met Your Mother that you can find it on multiple merchandise items, from t-shirts to mugs and even cushions. The Mermaid Theory. According to Barney, every woman, no matter how initially repugnant, will live to become a mermaid for a man if he spends a lot of time with her. It often happens at work or in your personal life, with your close friends, for example. This is what happened to Marshall and his secretary Iris, and then with Marshall and Robin.
Wait, does that mean that I'm a manatee right now?
Big time manatee.
According to Barney, his theory came to be after sailors would see manatees as beautiful mermaids after spending too much time at sea. And although many of the things and statistics shared by Barney were false, this one is close to being correct. There's a psychological principle called mere exposure effect, and it means that attraction to someone can develop only due to frequent contact. Have you ever experienced a manatee-mermaid situation in your life? Pause function. Lily and Marshall had a brilliant idea to handle their fights. Whenever they were arguing, either one of them could put the fight on pause, and only when they wanted to unpause it would it continue. They did it at the end of the first season when Lily decided to go to San Francisco instead of marrying Marshall.
Marshall, no! We're on pause! There's no crying in pause land!
But the most dramatic pause-on-pause sequence was in the final season when Marshall took a job without telling Lily. All in all, the pause function is the best way to argue with someone, don't you think? All sorts of high fives. Barney just loved giving high fives to his friends.
I request the highest of fives.
But have you noticed just how many types of high fives he introduced us to during the show? There was a phone five, when you give a high five to your phone, a solemn low five that you can use at a funeral, a hypothetical high five for hypothetical events, tiny five to do with little kids, self five, and many, many others.
Prayer five.
Shouting, no cell phones.
But the most epic one was the so-called high infinity Barney and Ted had in the finale. It really was the most legendary high five of all. Overall, there were more than 20 types of high fives in the show. How often do you high five your friends, and what's your favorite type? Share it in the comments. Graduation goggles. Ever noticed how when something you've always hated is about to end, you suddenly don't want to lose it? Like when high school graduation approaches, you unexpectedly become fond of your jerk classmates. The graduation goggles can happen when you decide to quit your job or break up with someone.
But the moment I decided to dump him, I suddenly got kind of wistful.
Just remember, if you start to feel something like this, you can't trust the graduation goggles, just like you can't trust beer goggles or bridesmaid goggles. Date time continuum.
Guys, as you know, I only have one rule.
Sure, Barney lied and he actually had tons of rules, but this one is actually one of his most valuable relationship principles. The date time continuum rule states that you never make plans with a girl further in the future than the amount of time you've been going out. For example, if you've been dating someone for 3 months, you shouldn't plan to, say, go to a wedding with him or her in half a year. It doesn't mean that you should assume that you're going to break up by then, but you can never be too safe, right? Oh, honey. You have to remember the episode with Katy Perry's cameo as Zoe's cousin. We never learned her name because the whole gang just called her Oh, honey. She was beautiful but so naive. As Robin said, you just want to wrap her up in a blanket and give her a cup of tea. She's like this little lost lamb who needs to be protected from the wolves.
My apartment building is so safe. My landlord, he even installed a security camera in my shower.
Oh, honey.
I don't know about you, but ever since I watched that episode, whenever I see someone being really naive, all I want to say to them is, oh, honey. It sums it up perfectly, right? Crazy eyes and jerk nails. These are two concepts. For guys, a girl who has crazy eyes is off limits because they indicate she'll become mentally unstable in the future.
Hi.
Hi.
It's nice to meet you guys.
All the men from the How I Met Your Mother gang had an experience with crazy eyes, and it always ended not good. Meanwhile, jerk nails is a woman's way of knowing that she shouldn't date a guy who has perfect fingernails.
Jerk nails, exactly.
Those are good indicators. True story. Barney would often use this phrase after saying something that actually wasn't true.
And then he banged like 100 chicks and invented a salad. True story.
Don't know about you, but very often, I'd believe in his fake history lessons because he'd tell them in such a convincing manner. And this true story at the end of his narration made it sound even more realistic. Like, sure, why shouldn't we believe that by resurrecting on the third day, Jesus taught us to wait for 3 days before calling a girl back after the first date? And sure, he also invented the high five. Barney's true story catchphrase didn't only come into our daily lives, but it also became a viral internet meme. Don't you just love it?
Boom. The end. True story.
Nothing good happens after 2 a.m. This is the best lesson Ted gave us, although he did it in a very dramatic way. But after all, the drama is one of the things that made How I Met Your Mother such a strong sitcom, didn't it? You obviously remember how Ted was freaking out about his long-distance relationship with Victoria and thought that she was going to dump him. He even ended up going to Robin in the middle of the night and almost cheated on Victoria with her. In the entire series, it was the worst thing he'd ever done. So by his example, we should remember that nothing good ever happens after 2 a.m.
When it's after 2 a.m., just go to sleep.
True story. Awesome! We could never forget about the word that became Barney's trademark.
I'm awesome!
I mean, he even made up a song about how awesome he is and added it to his video resume. And he wasn't the only one to use this word. In fact, the whole gang said it often.
Awesome. No, it was awesome.
And it was awesome.
Awesome.
This is awesome.
I was not always as awesome as I am today.
Marshall even offered to change his and Lily's last names after their wedding.
Lily and Marshall, awesome.
I love you, Mr. Awesome.
I love you, Mrs. Awesome.
In fact, I'm not sure if it's even possible to count how many times the word awesome was in How I Met Your Mother. And how often do you say it?
I'm awesome.
Do you use any of these phrases and concepts in your everyday life? Are there any other quotes you love from How I Met Your Mother? Share in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and stay awesome. Thanks for watching.